Welcome to the End of Course Show. I'm your host, Mr. B. We are bringing you an update on what's been happening in the war. It's been a few days since our last update, so we're just going to jump in and fill you in. All right. I reference third party, I guess you could say, media outlet that's based in India. It's called First Post. You guys definitely go check them out. But I believe they have good, relevant information. It's credible. So that's my news source, and I'm sharing it with you guys. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I have to weigh in on this particular point. It appears to me that Iran's strategy focuses more on holding out long enough to put the squeeze on other countries whose incentives and whose interests are being infringed upon by this war. And let me tell you what I mean. Right now, certain countries have a certain number of days in on reserve. So India, maybe they can go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month using their reserve fuel. But if they're importing 40% of their oil, if not more, from the Strait of Hormuz, at some point they can't survive without that, you know, stream of imports coming in through that strait. So their interests will go from being an innocent bystander to they need to get involved. Now, if them getting involved is on the premise of saying to one of the two sides, you got to do something here to stop this war. And let's just say they go to the Iranians and they say, well, you need to stop. And the Iranians say, well, get the aggressors of the war to stop. They attacked us, we're defending ourselves. And as long as you continue to be an innocent bystander in this, you're being complicit. So if you really wanted to stop, put the pressure on them to make it stop. And if they refuse to, then maybe you need to take arms and force them. Or maybe you need to take measures through the United States or whatever and force them. At some point, if you're China, at some point, if you're India, and China's already outright blaming Israel, saying they're the reason for all the Middle Eastern conflicts. Like, they're not mincing words. From the things that I've read online and through Facebook and other publications as to who they think the agitators of this particular conflict is. At what point will China's patience with this wear out? At what point are they going to say, well, if you don't stop, we're now going to step in to enforce, to ensure that you stop. We're now going to add help. We're now going to send troops. We're now going to do this because now you're inflicting on our interest. And you're causing our economies, our people, harm and hurt and making things tough for us. So the Iranian strategy, to me, is victory lies in not giving in and fighting and prolonging this conflict for as long as possible. Because as long as that conflict's prolonged and the Strait of Hormuz is closed, not just does the United States feel it, but all their allied partners feel it. India feels it. You can already see evidence of this. The United States put sanctions on India and tariffs on India and prevented them from buying certain oil from Russia. They start this war. Now India's ability to import the amount of oil that they generally import in order for their society and economy to run is now being infringed upon. The United States know that they're the reason why that's happening. So what do? They lift the sanctions, they lift the restrictions, and now they tell them you can go ahead and buy oil from Russia, which was the whole point of them putting a certain tariff on them in the first place. So now that that's done, it shows you that the U.S. now can't even, they'll compromise their own tactics because of the impact that it's having on countries that they want to have relationships with. And right now, Donald Trump can say, well, there's a little hardship for a little while. The oil price is going up. It's going up incrementally. It's up over 100. What happens when it gets to 150 dollars a barrel, to $200 a barrel, to $300 a barrel? It's not little anymore, my friend. And people are not gonna like it. Your poll numbers is not gonna go up. So at that point, it just creates more of pressure system for things to de-escalate or escalate further. The point is, it can't continue to go on where other nations who have no involvement in this are being affected. Eventually, they're going to get involved, whether militarily, whether economically, whether they're disassociated. It's already happening. Donald Trump started a border peace. Indonesia, I believe, was one of the countries that was in support of the border peace and was complimenting Donald Trump. The moment this war starts, Indonesia pulls out of the border peace. How many other countries will do that? Then you have, I've read somewhere where, some of the Arab states are now saying, well, we can't make the investments we were going to make in the United States anymore. Like, we're losing money and you guys decided to start a war. So we got to look at what we've committed to. How are we going to invest $1 trillion into your country? And now we need that trillion to rebuild the infrastructure that's been destroyed by you starting this war. Our pipelines are messed up. We're not even pulling in as much money. We can't make money because, the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. We can't actually distribute our commodity, this oil, to the world and make money. How are we going to invest in you? Like, how do we do that? Like, where the money's not going to come from nowhere. How are we going to do it? So in a way, and this is why I don't understand why Donald Trump did this, as a guy who wants to see the guy win, why would you do that? Like, you're going to alienate your most important allies, which is those Arab states in the Middle East, the UAEs, the Saudi Arabias, the Omans, all these different states that you need that essentially drives, that backs the dollar, are being affected. The petrodollar, their petroleum is what makes the dollar relevant. It's the commodity that backs the dollar. Just as, some places the dollar is backed by gold being in itself a commodity. So is the petrol. That's a commodity, and now they can't sell it. At what point are they going to say, we don't want the dollar to be the main focus anymore? You don't know. My point is, why risk losing those relationships on this? Why? It makes no sense. But, you just gotta watch. But it makes absolutely no sense. I don't know why he would do it. Okay, so I have to stop here and actually weigh in. I think it should be illegal for people to generate AI videos of a live conflict, giving people a certain impression when that's not the truth. Now, imagine the video where they literally had an AI video of a high official in India saying or threatening the Iranian regime, who's already in a vulnerable state. They don't know who their friends are. They're attacking everything that they think is affiliated with the westernized culture. So now a video like that could be misinterpreted, and those people could potentially direct an attack on India. And now India is directly engaged, thereby expanding the war. solely on the basis of the fact that someone callously put up a video that was not honest and not true, but the intended purpose was to deceive, viewers. To me, that's dangerous. And this is why I do think there needs to be more controls around AI videos. People are just generating AI videos with someone's likeness, someone's voice, someone's, image. And we can't tell whether it's an AI or not an AI unless you're an unless you're an analyst who's actually looking through certain details of the video and cross-referencing it with past details of the video. You won't put that together. You will simply think, oh, this is something that just recently happened. 9 out of 10 people would come to that conclusion and take it as to be true. And to me, that's dangerous. And I do think there needs to be controls, whether on the part of government, on these companies who's giving people access to software that can do this. This is not right. But at the same time, too, on the propaganda side, there is people who are trying to do this purposely for the sake of deceiving. And I'll let you decide who those people are. But, they have an vested interest to deceive people and to escalate the matter further as opposed to de-escalating the issue. So you gotta weigh both sides. To me, I think AI videos makes the situation more dangerous, and therefore there should be controls around, that. Meaning if someone's gonna generate a video that they know to be false to amplify a situation, to pour essentially oil on something that's already a fire-filled situation, then I think there need to be consequences for people who deliberately do that in an effort to deceive the public for the sake of making money or whatever. So that does need to be looked at in terms of regulations around AI and how it gets handled. Iran is playing a masterful game. I have to say, they are playing a masterful game. The game they're playing is a game where they're saying, we don't mind injuring the world based on our principles. They have nothing to lose. I mean, when you kill their leader, their religious leader at that, these people are at this point, they're really kind of backed against the wall. So at this point, they're doing anything to lash out. And it is being effective. All the markets are being affected around the world. And even when agencies like the IAEA, the Energy Agency, steps in to do what they're doing, which is to approve an influx of reserve oil into the market so that it doesn't hit the markets as hard, the problem still remains that even though different countries has agreed to give some of their reserves to distribute throughout various areas, you still got to get the oil from one location to the next. And if it's got to go through that corridor, that Strait of Hormuz corridor, and Iran is saying we're not going to let a drop of oil pass by for as long as we're being attacked, like you still have the same problem, and it's still going to reflect in people's confidence in the market. And that's what you're seeing. Countries are losing billions. People's portfolios are losing money, because if you have a diversified portfolio in the stock market and this is happening, everything's taking, your retirement's taking a hit. Everything is taking a hit. I don't know how this is sustainable for the Trump administration, to be totally honest with you. I don't know how he can go multiple days of this, because whatever moral victory he may get from winning this war, if it leaves people's pocketbooks, more empty, or if it's drastically affected someone's retirement account, or if it's keeping people from being able to, pay a decent price for their gas, I don't think his moral victory equates to the impact, the economic impact that the decision to go into war is going to have on people. I mean, all I'm doing is watching and observing the impact of decisions um, on people. And I think that's sort of the lesson here. When you make decisions, do you take the time to assess the impact that that decision is going to have on others? You know, and is the decision that you're making, does the impact that it have on others at least something that you take into consideration? Or is the impact that it has on others at least something that you weigh? Because once you're making decisions that affect others, others will eventually start making decisions that affect you. It's the domino effect. So I don't know. I hope there's an off ramp here and that we find a solution sooner rather than later, because the world can't continue to take these hits on the chin and not eventually retaliate. So at some point, there's gonna be a Trump has to take this into consideration. You know, the longer this thing drags on, the longer it bleeds the economy. And for a guy who prides himself on making deals, for a guy who takes pride in saying, I brought in $2-3 trillion into the United States because I went out and made deals with different countries and they're going to invest into the hottest market, and that's the United States. You can undo all of that with this decision. And he is, in some ways, undoing all of that with this decision. Because now those people are now like, what we intended to invest, we no longer have it. At the time that we intended to make that investment, we assumed there wasn't going to be a war that affected global markets to a point where countries are losing money. Now the money that we thought we would have, that we anticipated having, we don't have. So how can we invest it or commit to investing it in you when we're trying to pick up the pieces from a decision you made? I don't know. I don't know if Trump's got an answer for that. What can I say? But she's right. I mean, Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He is who he is. He talks the way he talks. And I think in a way he's saying what he has to say because he feels like he has to say it. He's saying that we've won because how you're now trying to convince the American people that we need to go a little longer, because if we win and give it back to them, we didn't really win, because now we have to make sure that we win long term. So now you see that he apparently went on a campaign where he's trying to sell this idea that maybe we should be okay with sending our troops and our kids and our family members and our friends and our service members into a ground operation in Iran for an extended period of time, a country of 90 million people who hates our guts for the most part. That's the next phase of this, is he's got to sell it to the American public. And as a guy who wants to see Trump succeed, I don't think this is the way he needs to be going. I don't think he needs to be selling this war anymore to the American people, because it's not going to end the way he thinks it's going to end. And the people who genuinely care for Donald Trump has been trying to tell him that. And I don't think he's really catching it. I think he's got the adrenaline of the whole world is watching. I can't be wrong. I have to double down on this position. Right or wrong, I'm going to continue to go down this path, and there's no sense of humility on his part to say, we're done here. We've done more than enough, and we're going to pull back, and we're going to allow things to fall in play. I think part of the calculation was that when they came in and started bombing, the people were then going to get up and revolt. That was never a real thing. The reason why it was never a real thing is because the people were never really in opposition to that extent. This is not Iraq, where you saw a bunch of people run and they're cutting off the statue of Saddam Hussein, and they're doing. No, this is not the same thing. Like those photo ops we were looking for, we're not gonna get that here. These people, for the most part, support their system. The majority of the people are under that system, and apparently they're not that opposed to it that you haven't seen anybody uprising against the regime. If anything, they're pledging their support to the regime, which is not what I think we anticipated would happen here. But for whatever reason, people want you not to believe your eyes. People want you not to use your brain and not to use your intuition to see this for what it is. And unfortunately, they will be successful in convincing some that this is the right course of action. Some of us are wise enough to know, if you paid any attention to prior military engagements like this, i.e. Iraq, i.e. Libya, and a few other places, you start to see that this has not been successful over time, Afghanistan being one of them, and that in the end, we can't impose our will on everybody. You know, we have interests, and at some ways we could, you know, look into our interests, but there's some things fundamentally you're not going to force someone else in a different culture, in a different country to incorporate your way of living. It's like, if I'm not a vegetarian and my neighbor is, you know, I'll be respectful when I go to my neighbor's house. Maybe I won't eat meat there, but my neighbor can't force me to be a vegetarian in my house. You know what I mean? So it's like, and when they try to do that, you would start to feel differently about the neighbor. Like, who do they think they are? I think that's what's happening. There's some people who are like, look, democracy's cool. Look, that system you got is cool for you. It's not what we ultimately want. And there's a lot of people who grew up thinking and believing this. Like, there's people in there this dude's in power for 40 years. 40 years. So that means there's generations of people who were born into his system. His way of doing things, their way of living, is the only way that these people know. If they're a 40-year-old, they don't know any other life. They haven't been exposed to any other life but that life. And now all of a sudden, the person, the figurehead of their lifestyle, you just killed. You think those people are going to somehow like snap out of it and be like, yeah, the life you've never experienced, just the democratic life where we get to tell you who your leader is. Yeah, that life is the new life that you're now going to incorporate. What? Like, I just don't even think that, I don't even think that that's, like, any reasonable person would think that that makes any sense. But they seem to try to push this narrative, and I don't know why. It's really a zero-sum game narrative. But again, you know, the Bible says we are to pray for our leaders. So that's what I'm going to encourage my people to do. Pray for your leaders. Clearly, this thing is evident that this isn't the way to go. But, you know, pray for your leaders. I want to see the guy win. I want to see him be a good leader and make a good impact on the American people and this country. I don't know that this exit he took from being a non-war person to now he's leading the charge for endless war. I don't know why, but I don't think that's the path. And we just got to pray that God removes the scales and God puts the right people around him to get him off this path, because this is not going to bode well for his legacy, and it's not going to bode well for America's reputation if it continues to paint us in this way as the bullies, as whatever, you know. So again, just pray and just hope that you know, Trump that just things change so that Trump can see things differently than how he's currently seeing it. All right, that's it for me. Thank you for joining us here at the Intercourse Show. I hope some of this information I was provided, as you saw, she mentioned the importance of making sure you're dispersing credible information and not just random information you find online. Now that you know that AI is a problem, just seeing a video and making a video about the video you saw without verification or without knowing that it came from a credible source is not fiscally responsible or, to me, socially responsible. So that's why I try to reference credible videos when I talk on the matter and I weigh in and give my opinions as a result. But that being said, I want it to be fair to my audience as well. I don't want to give you guys wrong information, thereby losing my credibility. So this to me is a credible source, and I hope you guys feel similarly. But I also share the information so you guys can weigh in and share your thoughts and let me know what you think, and just continue the conversation so that we are informed. The Bible says, in all you're getting, get understanding. And sometimes if you don't have the right information, you won't have the right understanding. So with that said, I thank you all for joining me. I'm Mr. B, of course, and I enjoy, interacting with you guys. So definitely like and subscribe, stay connected, and let's continue to have conversations about what's happening in the world. All right, guys, signing out.